Well, hello there, and welcome to my Almost Midlife Crisis, that show that dives into that tricky time in our lives when we're no longer young, but we aren't old yet either. I'm your host, Jennifer Villamel. I've now been unemployed for 4.5 months, which is crazy. Still can't believe it. But during this time, I've been doing a lot of soul searching, and I've been working with a career coach. And in today's episode, we're going to talk about how as we get older, our priorities shift. And this can happen for a lot of reasons. For me, it's because I'm starting a family, and that's definitely a big reason. But it doesn't even have to be a big life event. It's very normal for as we age and as different things are important to us, that we're going to have a priorities shift. So if you've started to notice a shift in your motivation, or you've just been feeling this need to reprioritize, then this one's for you. So let's dive in. First of all, it feels good to be back. I realized that I took a couple week hiatus, and listen, apologies for that, folks. But it's been a bit crazy around these parts. And at the same time, I'm really starting to feel my third trimester. Like, I'm not going to lie. We've been really busy going to prenatal classes and prepping for this baby. And as well as we've just been having more social outings because I feel like we're trying to maximize not only the end of summer in Chicago, but our childless lives like a little longer. I'll get into all of that next week, but plan on more consistency between now and the time the baby arrives. So let's talk about the career pivot. And, you have to excuse my voice. I have no idea why it's why it is the way it is today. So as I've spent more time away from work, I have realized how burnt out I actually was and how much I needed this time. But looking back, I don't know why I'm surprised. Never taking time off between roles definitely did not help. And the signs that I was burnt out were glaring back at me in the mirror. From a shorter temper in and out of the office, as well as just like there were days I was just crying after a day of work. Yeah, I would say I was past the point of burnt out. Well, it was really hard to give up a paycheck and get over the whole uncomfortable feeling of having free time for the first time in my life since I was pretty much 15 years old. I now know more than ever how much this is exactly what I needed. It also is not lost on me that when I was at my highest level of burnout, I suffered from a chemical pregnancy. And then 1 month off, when I took 1 month between roles, I became pregnant. And whether you believe in God or not, to me, that was something or something higher telling me that I needed a break. I think about how if I wasn't laid off, I wouldn't have taken this time. I would have considered a month enough time. Hell, it was longer. It was a month longer than I'd ever taken. But I also noticed in my new role that my triggers were still there. I loved my new job, but when one of my triggers was turned on, I was quick to react. And of course, I guess the benefit of working from home situation is that when you burnt out, you can react without anyone seeing you, or at least minimize the impact of your reaction. But being reactive is a sign that you didn't take enough time. Like if you're very quick to react, it's because there's not enough space there, right? So you're just going to react. It's like if you end a personal relationship and then, immediately enter into a new one and your new partner does something that reminds you of your ex and you immediately feel triggered, same rules apply. If you start a new role, no matter how much you're excited about it, if you're still easily triggered, then you didn't take enough time in between. And if I'm really honest with myself, if I wasn't pregnant at the time of layoffs, I wouldn't have taken that time off. I would have just gotten another job. I would have jumped right back into the grind. And it kind of makes me sad that that statement is true, but also hopeful. It gives me hope that I now have the self-awareness to recognize that while in most of my life, I'm really good at stepping out of my comfort zone, when it comes to my career and job security, that was an area that I was less comfortable with being uncomfortable. My pregnancy made me pause and ask myself if it was the best time to jump into my next role or not. This little girl inside of me forced me to take a moment, just take a beat, and make the decision to take this time for myself. She hasn't even taken her first breath yet. And honestly, she's given me a gift that I didn't even realize I needed. I couldn't be more thankful for that time because I've never been more at peace with where I am in life. I feel like until this point, my whole life has been made up of taking steps forward and figuring it out as I go. From learning to take my first steps, to starting school, to working my way through elementary school, high school, college. It's always been some sort of rush to quote unquote start my life, which I considered being an adult. I couldn't wait for the next step. And part of me wonders if this was because I had so many rules and limitations as I entered into my teenage and young adult years. Like, was my rush to grow up? See, I don't know what's going on with my voice. Excuse me. Was my rush to grow up more just my yearning for freedom to make my own decisions and do things my way? And then after college, I joined the workforce and I was trying to work hard to climb the ladder as quickly as possible so I could, quote, enjoy my success. And at the same time, I was dating with purpose for the first time in my life. I wanted to find someone to spend my life with, like my partner. And every setback, whether in the workplace regarding a promotion I wanted or didn't get, or in my personal life when a relationship failed, I looked at it as a sharp turn in the racetrack. I was speeding along. It didn't throw me off track, but it slowed me down a little bit, and I fought like hell to get back to full speed. So when I started dating my now husband, I look back on how much time and mental energy I wasted worrying about if it was going to get more serious and if it was going to end in marriage. Now, I know a lot of this had to do with the pressure that was put on me for being in my 30s. In a committed relationship that wasn't moving forward in the typical milestone perspective that was ingrained in me from my family and society for my entire life. I was taught success in relationships meant marriage. That's what it means. And the longer it took for us to get to that point, the more I was worried I would never be successful. Only 1 year into my marriage, and I can honestly say how just effed up that way of thinking is. Like, first of all, getting married isn't the end point to strive for. It's not an end. It's just the beginning of the next stage. Real success comes from sustaining the relationship, married or not, day in and day out. That's when the real work begins. That's not when it ends, folks. So if you're currently getting ready to get married, just know that it's just beginning. It's also insane that I put so much pressure on myself and our relationship to be within this certain time frame that I let others make that determination for me. I'm now at a place where I want to be present in the times we have together instead of worrying about what comes next. Enjoy the journey, you may say, rather than the destination. I would say I'm finally at this stage in my career as well. Working with the career coach was important for me. When I started with the coach, I thought I wanted to work with her to help me figure out what kind of roles I wanted. But now going through the process, I don't actually think that was the reason. Where I nutted out was no shock to me, honestly. They're roles that I have thought about in the past. There were no crazy revelations that surprised me. Instead, what I think I really needed from the coach was twofold. First, it was to understand my strengths better and how they translate into potential new roles. And this would help me filter out roles or companies that didn't enable me to leverage my strengths. So, for example, we looked at my natural abilities and strengths to determine the types of work style I should be in. And this one surprisingly had something that I was not expecting. There was this ability that was revealed that was my connection to music and my auditory memory. I had super high marks compared to others. I'm talking like 99, 100th percentile compared to others that had taken the same evaluation on my tonal and rhythm and my tonal and rhythm memory and my pitch discrimination. And this means that not only do I have the innate ability to learn musical instruments in foreign languages, fun, good to know, but in the workplace, these skills are translatable for diplomacy, mediation, and the need to be able to move around and not sit at a desk all day. Now, some of my other key strengths are my ability to identify and plan against 3 to 5 year goals while also diving into the details, or my ability to communicate with what they call generalists and specialists to develop one holistic, seamless story that everyone can align to. I'm also good at remembering numbers, which can translate to remembering random facts and figures needed for day-to-day work. And this reminds me actually of a client I had one time. I was working on this large CPG company, use your imagination. It's probably right. And my head client would bring his tablet and spit off random numbers during your presentation. And I'm not going to speculate on his reasons for doing this. I don't really care. But I quickly learned that if I was going to gain his respect, I needed to also have this ability. So one day he brought up this like specific ROI number, just like this really specific number for Facebook during my presentation. And I actually corrected him with a different number. And from there on, he actually didn't test me as much. And I was able to get through more of my presentation without interruption, which it's just so crazy, like the random things you remember sometimes. Huh? Like to me, I was like, all right, Jennifer, 1, you 0. I mean, he normally won because he's brilliant. But I was really proud of that moment. Small wins. The evaluation really just confirmed that I'm better working in a team environment versus solo. And I'm able to come up with a high volume of ideas and really thrive in this like brainstorm collaborative environment. And looking back, the roles I was most successful in enabled me to utilize these natural abilities, which gave me confidence in the evaluation itself. The other benefit of working with a coach was to really put into words my priorities for how my next role would fit into my new life. As we get older, our priorities shift. I mean, that's so normal. Like, I hope they do. I mean, my priorities as a 20-year-old better be different than my priorities as a 40-year-old, or I need to like relook at my whole life. And let's face it, having kids is a very real and valid reason for shifting your priorities. This makes sense. You're now responsible for another human life. And for all new parents, your new priorities may look different, right? Just because you're a parent and someone else is a parent doesn't mean your priorities are the same. And that's okay. But it's important to know what they are and to be able to put them into words. So for me, bringing this human into the world does not diminish my career aspirations, but it does make me think about how this role fits into my new life that I want to create. You know, when I was younger, work was numero uno in my life. Like I didn't care how much time I spent in the office as long as it was helping me move up and get ahead. And now that I've experienced burnout and I'm about to take on motherhood, the realist in me says that if I want to not just be happy in my new role, but perform my best, because that's different. Like you could like your job, but maybe you can't actually, for whatever reason, you're not performing at your best. And you could perform at your best, but hate your job. But if I want both, then some boundaries need to exist. And this is an important differentiation because I don't believe there's any role that will make you happy in and of itself. And this is because our work, no matter how passionate we are about it, is not what makes up 100% of our life. You can love your job, but then feel like a failure in other parts of your life. You can love your life, but you could hate your job. I believe that the real key to happiness is how the different priorities in your life fit together to allow you to show up as your best self across all of them. Now, does this seem impossible? Yeah. You know what? At times it does. At times it does. Because at times it seems like our priorities are competing for our attention. But that's why taking the time to really think about our priorities and also how to prioritize between them, I think is a really critical step. And what makes it even harder is the answer can and will shift over time. And your priorities may be different than your partner's, which can also be difficult. For me, as I look ahead, I see 4 top priorities. First and foremost, it's myself. And I truly believe that if I don't take time for me, then everything else falls apart. So what does that look like? That means making time for what feeds me physically, mentally, and spiritually. I need to have time to work out at least 5 times a week. I also need time for things to bring me happiness, like my weekend tennis and brunch with a friend. And I also need time to travel. That is so important to me, both with Christian as well as without. Now, does this sound selfish? You know what? I don't care. I have found that if I don't do these things, I struggle to be my best self elsewhere. And maybe they'll look different with a kid, but they don't have to go away. So Christian and I have already started talking about how we'll both work our schedules so we can watch the baby when the others want to work out. Because working out is important to us. It's like, it's not just physical. I'm not like obsessed with like getting my post-baby body back. Oh my God. Like, it's the amount of pressure to get your post-baby body back is so freaking ridiculous. I can't even. I could write an entire episode on that. That's not what it's about. It's, for me, working out is also, it's me time. It's time to like shut my brain off and have an instructor of some sort just tell me what to do for like an hour. Mentally, it helps me so much. So it's really important to me. It's a really important part of my life. And Christian feels the same way. And so we're like, we need to help each other make sure that we are giving ourselves time for that. And tennis and brunch, yeah, you know what? Like having adult time without children and having like friend time is also so important just mentally. I've already started to discuss options for childcare during tennis. And then I would love to bring her to brunch with me. So like I said, like it might look different than what we did in the past, but I can still do it. Where there's a will, there's a way. And the second priority is my relationship with Christian. We both come from divorced parents, and we know that the toll that can take on not only the divorcees, but also their children. If we want to avoid that outcome, we have to put work into our partnership. And what does that mean? That means regular date nights and at least a yearly trip for just the two of us. That means talking about non-child related things, like things that do not revolve around this child, and enjoying a social life and our hobbies together. All of this is doable with a plan, mostly a childcare plan, let's be honest. But both Christian and I are dedicated to ensuring that we invest in childcare so that we have our time without the child as well. And I hear parents speak about how they haven't had a night alone in months or years, some of them years, or they've never done anything to celebrate their wedding anniversary. And honestly, this makes me really sad. Like, I don't see that as oh, wow, you're such a good parent. Like, how do you expect to live and have a lasting marriage if you don't have time to yourselves? Like, sooner or later, that kid is going to move out, right? Like, they're not going to be in your house forever. And yes, while the time is short and you need to enjoy it, and there's, enjoy every moment because time flies, blah, blah, blah. Like, there's a lot of that pressure too. If you make your relationship 100% about the children, then when they move on, what do you have left? You have nothing. You did not foster that relationship for like 18 years. You think it's just going to magically reappear after that? No, I hate to break it to you, but it's not. Third priority is our little girl. And I know as parents, we're supposed to say that our children are our number one priority. So this probably sounds strange, but hear me out. Overall, she's number 3, but in a way, she's still number 1. Because I put myself first and I put our marriage second because I was thinking about the impact on her. Yes, it's the impact on me too. But at the end of the day, everything that I go through is going to impact her. right? Like it's going to impact my ability to deal with her, to react with her, to be patient, to be present in the moment. Unfortunately, we've all experienced the mom that wasn't taking care of herself, whether it was your own mom or someone else's mom or a mom that that you're friends with. Like we all know that mom. Or we all know the parents that were in an unhappy marriage. These two scenarios impact everything around them, and especially their children. The children pick up so much about this. I mean, my favorite movie of all time is American Beauty. And for a lot of reasons, but I just rewatched it the other day, and seeing the turmoil that the parents are in, you see how it impacts the kids, right? Whether they realize it or not. So it's important. It's important. I believe that to be the best parents we can be, we have to take care of ourselves first. So in a way, she is kind of number one, but in the way I'm kind of wording it, she's 3. But putting our kids first above and beyond everything else means, like when people say that, like my kid comes first no matter what, and there's a lot of people that do that, it means that we still need to recognize our own impact we have on them. Like no one has a bigger impact on our kids than us. So if we put our needs aside, not only will we be trying to water the garden with like an empty bucket per se, but we also will be teaching them to do the same. We're teaching them to put everyone's needs before their own. And we don't want that for our kids, do we? Like, I don't want that for her. And spoiler alert, you can't water the garden without water. The plants just die. And if you teach your kids to put everyone's needs before their own, then they're going to struggle to take care of themselves later. And as parents, isn't it our jobs to teach them how to make themselves happy, to not have to rely on others for their happiness? Do we not have to teach them how to take care of themselves? And this goes beyond teaching them how to do their laundry or balance a checkbook and cook, okay? Also very important. Like the amount of people that don't know how to freaking cook is unbelievable. But we also need to help them take care of their emotional needs so they don't enter into toxic relationships or they don't allow others to take advantage of them. We need to teach them how to manage their own stress and to be self-aware. And how do you teach this if you can't even practice it on yourself? Lastly, but still really important. So 4, fourth on the priority list, out of all the priorities in life, I think is still pretty good, is my career. I've invested a lot of time and energy into my career. I also get a lot from working. Like I'm challenged in a way that I'm not elsewhere in my life. And this is something I've actually really noticed since I stopped working. It feels like there's this part of my brain that is not being utilized. Like I'm yearning to be challenged in this way. It excites me. It makes me feel more confident. It enables me to be more of a critical thinker and a problem solver elsewhere in my life. And it gives me balance. My career is really important to me. But what I need now in my career versus what I was willing to accept earlier in life has changed. So now that I'll be returning to work with a child, I have new expectations. I have new boundaries and needs that I need to consider when I'm looking for a new role. But let's be clear, I'm not naive either. I actually love marketing. I love it. I thought for a moment that I might move away from it entirely, but I really do enjoy it. But I also know that marketing is not and will never be a 9-to-5 job. It's just not realistic. I have also, I have budget and expenses. Like the reality of I have expenses that I need to pay for. So I have to take salary into consideration. I can't really take this like pay cut that would negatively impact my household. But there are plenty of ways I can have my cake and eat it too. If in this scenario, cake is my career. So first, I'm looking for a hybrid role. One that allows me to work from home when I need to, but also go into the office. I actually do prefer FaceTime. And I've learned over the last couple of years that 100% remote work is actually not for me. I like a mix. I prefer flexibility. I'm also looking for a role that has no more than 30% travel. At least right now. This could change. But, I do like a business trip, but realistically, I can't be traveling all the time. Like Christian travels for his work. So if we're both traveling, this is just going to create some scheduling conflicts that we'll need to work through. And I don't always want to be gone. Like I also want to be home with my family too. Like traveling too much starts taking too much away from my top 3 priorities. I want a role that plays to my strengths so that I can thrive, right? A collaborative environment, an ability to be part of higher level conversations, an innovative and fail fast culture, and preferably at a company I can get behind. I'm past the days where I want to work for a company with questionable practices and values or that don't prioritize diversity at all levels. Like I'm over it. I don't want to be a part of that anymore. I've actually been pretty lucky where I've avoided that for the most part. But as I kind of look at new roles, this is definitely something I'm considering. I am willing to relocate, but it's highly dependent on where. There's like a big if on this. Like if it was California, yeah, I'd consider it. Texas held to the no. Sorry if you live in Texas, but there's no way you're going to see Texas as my address. That's a big fat no for me. There's also a lot more when it comes to like the actual day-to-day that I'm thinking about and what makes me happy. That's included too in this list, all of which helped me narrow down on the actual roles to go after. Making a pivot in your life can and probably is scary because a shift in priorities can be daunting, but it's also necessary as we grow and our lives change. I mean, think about it. Would it really make sense to have the same priorities in your 20s as you do in your 40s? Like, what a sad life that would be. Considering I'm unemployed for the first time in my adult life and I'm 36 weeks pregnant, I cannot believe how calm I actually feel right now. Like, shouldn't I be freaking out more? I'm starting the search for a new role that is out of my comfort zone, and I am a month away from becoming a first-time parent or less. I mean, it could happen whenever. I should feel overwhelmed and anxious at what this next step will look like. But instead, I'm kind of excited. I'm excited. And I think the best word to describe it is ready. I feel ready. As you know, through this season, this feeling of readiness didn't just appear. I didn't get laid off and then the following week I jumped into the excitement and readiness mode. I mean, that would have been great. But to just skip to the punchline without feeling overwhelmed or scared or confused, anxious maybe, would be impossible. Because like everything else in life, folks, there's no quick fix for this. There's no pill you can just take and you know what to do next. There's no influencer video you can watch to make your next move. You have to put in the work. You have to be the one to identify what your new priorities are, to reevaluate how you are currently spending your time and if it aligns with these priorities. And in a lot of cases, develop a path to make the necessary changes. Maybe that means working with a career coach. Maybe it just means getting out a pen and paper and start sorting through your thoughts. Or maybe you're a mood board person. It doesn't really matter how you get there, but what matters is that you take the time to work it out. During a supporter weekend at Christian's MBA program, a professor there gave a lecture that really has stuck with me during this journey. He said, "You have 1,440 minutes in a day. How you choose to spend those minutes is on you. Once you figure out your priorities, I challenge you to break up your day this way." You don't have to do it minute by minute, like don't be a psychopath. But is your time prioritized in the same way? Or can it be optimized to align better with your priorities? I'm not saying that every single day will work out this way. It is life. We're adults. We have shit we got to do, some stuff we don't want to do. I get it. But are like 50% of them lining up to your priorities? Even better, are 80% of them living up to your priorities? Are you able to make up the time for those that didn't hit the mark? And what changes could you make today to help you better spend your time? Thank you so much for joining me today. Please rate and review this podcast on Apple Podcasts. Join me on my social channels. You can follow by Almost Midlife Crisis on pretty much everywhere you're social. You can also check out the YouTube channel with videos and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Make sure you're always up to date on the latest episodes. Until next time.